Welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show. Now, I want you to tweet me today because this topic is a hot one. 90% of America's church services are still segregated in America in 2014. Indeed, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King said more than 40 years ago that 11 o'clock on Sunday morning is the most segregated hour in America. Why is that still so? Should we care? Do you care? I think we should. We should talk about it. So tweet me at @SantitaJ and go to Facebook, my page, the Santita Jackson and Friends page, and let's talk about it. This panel today is so exciting. Bishop, Archbishop, actually, Reverend Eddie Connor. Thank you so much. Tremendous author. I can't wait to have you back to talk about your book.
Absolutely. Glad
and of course, Pastor Charles Williams II.
Thank you so much for having me.
So glad to have you. Dr. Halim Naim.
Thank you.
Psychologist.
Thank you.
Maybe you can help to break us out, figure this out. Father Ted Parker. We confess, we all go to these segregated services. Talk to me.
Yes, we do.
I mean, because
Thank
you know,
you.
this is a fire that we did not start, to be fair. We think about Richard Allen, you know, the founder of the AME Church. They found themselves in Philadelphia sitting in segregated pews. They said, wait a minute, no, we're not going to do this. And before that, right? But should we be concerned about this study that says that today, 90% of America's churches are segregated? Dr. King was right today.
He was. Okay, I look at it like this, and this may be a little bit surprising, but I'm sort of glad I have the congregation that I do have.
And your congregation is?
Mostly African American.
In the Catholic Church?
In the Catholic Church. Now, Catholics are particular in so many ways, and I don't want to make this into a whole Catholic thing. But on the one hand, those who are African Americans and are Catholics are about 3% of all the Roman Catholics in the country. And so I'm glad that I have the congregation that I do have.
Why?
Because we are able to keep our culture together. We're able to do the remembrances that we need to do for African American Catholic folks, African American culture, and stay, as we are, Roman Catholic. So I'm glad for that. Now, does that mean that I want a church to be segregated? I do not want a church to be segregated. At the same time, what did I grow up in? Well, I grew up in a Catholic church that was Italian in Brooklyn.
What was that like for you? And how did that influence what you're saying right now?
Well, okay, it was strange because the Christmas carols were in Italian. And we had on these big red and white bow tie things, you know, at Christmas time, and we're in procession and all of that, you know. Nino, Dormi.
Very proud
all of that sort
like
of thing.
you.
And all of that,
You put me on blast.
Yes, I did. Come on. They're not going to your Ferragamos on the day.
But in the 60s, once African American culture became more popular, and once African American Catholics began to organize, we organized, priests and seminarians and brothers and sisters organized when Dr. King was assassinated. We all came together in different situations, and we organized ourselves. You know, that was the first time that's ever happened in this country.
Why did you feel compelled to organize the Black Catholics?
Because we were in a church where it's white, and we were not considered. We were not really considered. Yeah, you were baptized, and you have a soul, like we all have souls, yes, so baptize them. But we weren't considered, you know, important in that sense. Once we organized and once we got together, it was a great help to me. I was a seminarian at the time. It was wonderful to see other black guys who want to be priests. How else would I see them? In the seminary where I was the only black person there. Out of what, 50 people. So it was important. So the idea of being together as an African American person who is Catholic in the church, in our own community, was very, very important to me.
You know, this is great. I wish I could remember the name of this book. Reverend Connor, Pastor Williams, Dr. Naim. They talked about many of our most prominent African American clergy who had trouble, who struggled in seminary, in the white seminaries, in the mainstream seminaries, that many of them dropped out at one point. My father left the University of Chicago a semester shy of getting his master's in divinity to go work for Dr. King. You know, but it turns out he was only alive 3 more years, so there you go. But he got a D in preaching. because they didn't understand that he had, he brought in the notes to the teacher and said, hey, I've done all the research, and now you see the papers, I've written it out, but I cannot read a sermon. That's not how we're impacted.
Yes.
And I hear you talk about the cultural reasons. Now, you're a generation or two removed from Father Parker, and you're not Catholic. Are you surprised by what he's saying here? I mean, are you surprised by this study today, Reverend Connor?
You know what? I am not surprised by it.
Why
because
not?
I think it's really indicative of the communities that we live in, especially today, and especially the whole aspect of you think about the church and the pious, sanctimonious type of movement that we really are engaged in the church. And I think our experiences and our worship style is really invested and engaged in those experiences that we do have, which speak to the past, which speak to those who have waded in the water, and the Negro spirituals and many of the traditions that we do have. So I think it's in many cases we need
slavery.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Right? I mean, in America, I feel like this is a theme with us. You all are frightening me here.
Well,
No, I mean, but Reverend Connor?
Well, absolutely.
Because I hear people your age, not to pick on you, say, I don't want to talk about that anymore. Slavery, it's just, I mean, I hear young African Americans saying to me today, not that I'm so ancient. Come on, I'm older than you, and I'm glad about it. But I've lived long enough to see, I'm kind of between like 70s, 80s, and I see how important this is. But even in the 80s when I was in college, the debate was whether we should march or not. And the conclusion was, you shouldn't be marching because we don't need that anymore. So you're saying?
Well, it also, a study suggests that churches that are integrated are ran by white pastors. And then
So the baseline is white.
The baseline is white. And then if a black pastor takes an integrated church, that church automatically, through generations or through years, it becomes black. So
what is that saying to you?
Well, I think it also speaks to many of our own racial preconceptions and preconceived notions that we do have, even though we don't want to seem racist on the outside. I think there is still some race. Yes,
in America, really?
It's embedded. It's just embedded.
Okay.
There is de facto segregation and there's de jure. De facto meaning just our culture presents that for us and we levitate towards it. And de jure meaning that the law says we're segregated or forces us to be segregated. I think that the segregation that exists within the churches today, they're like the choices between whether you want ribs and chicken and greens and macaroni, or whether you want to go to a European-style 5-star class fine dining restaurant.
I'm
not hold it. I'm not hating at all. What I'm saying to you is that both of them have a serious value assessed to them, and some people assess one value over the other. I've been to European 5-star restaurants and taken some people to there, and they're like, man, I gotta get out of here. I can't take this. I want some soul food. And then I've been to some soul food places, and people have been like, this is greasy.
Right. And I think it's all good. But, I see a devaluation in all of this, Dr. Naeem, of that which is black. I mean, flowing from your remarks, but this is culture. And this is also, I mean, it's so many things. It's culture. It's kind of, because, when I go to church, many of us, they're like exorcisms, if you will. Because we are casting off the devils of the week. The preacher is filling us up so we can go on through the week. I don't see this as much in Islam, at least, Hey,
it's across Abrahamic faiths. Actually, the segregation. I actually did, my dissertation was on personality, social class, and gender's influence on religiosity.
Wow.
And the thing we see that we're not talking about as much is we bring our own personal, we've scientifically proven it now, first time for the Muslims in psychology. We bring our own baggage in terms of who we are, our social class, and our gender, and that influences how we practice religion. Scientifically, about 30%. So how we read the Bible, what food we eat, who stands in what way, how we dress in front of people, and different things like that. How loud do you speak? Do you have instruments or not? And you know, how much do you move, and different things like that. That plays a role. And that doesn't have anything to do with what is the words in the Bible, the words in the Quran, the words in the Torah. That has to do with what we bring, what the reader brings to that engagement. And much of segregation in all of our religious institutions, again, like we were talking to the father and to the pastor, it starts within. And there is, and I personally, in one aspect, I'm with the father, there's not a big problem with people being comfortable in terms of physical segregation. The problem is when you're spiritually segregated.
Well, then let me ask you this, all of you. Then is religion, is the church, is it man-made or is it God-inspired? Or both?
I really want to jump in. This is my whole major. Religion is man-made. Religion in and of itself. There's something we call spirituality. There's something we call inspiration, revelation, different things like that. Some of the manifestation of that comes from people and comes from how, you know, we think. We can be inspired with the same feeling or same message of God in the same neighborhood. I might think the best way to address what God put in my heart is little black boys need to read. And you might think we got to feed these people, or we have to do that, you know. So that's religion. That's the manifestation of how it comes out, and there's proofs and different information that backs up what we say. But the source of it is God. The source of it is there, but religion is a manifestation of what came down to the prophets. What came down to Jesus.
There are intercultural and interracial differences of how we actually experience God. Some folks, they foot stomp on the wood floor, you know, devotion, hymns,
BTU,
BTU. I mean, you know, quartet singing, you know. But then you've got some African American churches that have what we consider to be high church, you know.
Would you speak to high church, honey? Wait a minute, because we don't do that. All of this expressing, oh my.
Oh right, that's right, that's right.
I'm not mad at anybody, because it really is, like you said, it is cultural. I mean, so should
let me
this
tell you what I want to say.
Because no, you're high church, because you know we're not Catholic. Hold on.
I don't like the word religion. I don't like the word religion.
Okay, everybody. Thank you, everyone. It's been great.
What we are about.
Why did I bring this man on here today?
No, but it's about faith. And faith communities. There are Protestant faith communities, Baptist, the Muslim faith communities, the Catholic faith, Jewish faith communities. Because when I hear that word religion, I just think of all those things you said, and I say, oh, I don't like any of that. I don't like any of that. It's about faith communities.
I want to ask you this, because my mother was raised Catholic, and you sound so much like her.
Okay.
And it's very interesting, because Catholicism, well, the Catholic Church, I mean, look, you all are a country. You can dispense passports, for heaven's sake. I mean, the Vatican.
The Vatican, but
the
Vatican is the Vatican.
Look, but you're also really almost the religious authority for the world. Because when the Pope says something,
it is the universal church.
I mean, it's the universal church, at least in.
Yes.
That's the way it's shaken out, right?
That's the way it goes. Yeah.
What is it about this institution that makes you all pierce the veil, so to speak? I mean, you say, wait, I've heard her say many times, spirituality is the goal. This is the root, okay? Because she looks at organized religion, she respects it, she loves it, but you all have a healthy skepticism about all of this because you say, is it because, have you been over-institutionalized? Do you think we can over-church?
Well, I think...
but do you understand what I'm saying, everybody? Because sometimes, it's like people go to church every Sunday. When they grow up, they push back on it.
Well, what about a little historical thing? What about the Inquisition? Okay.
No, what was that?
The Inquisition. You're talking about over church. When orthodoxy must be practiced by everyone, And when you're proved to be, quote, a heretic, the church, in that sense it was the Catholic Church, gave you over to the state, and the state, of course, would execute you. Okay? You can be too orthodox.
Too churched, over churched?
Well, I don't know if that's over churched. I think it's searching for the truth. We all want the truth. Okay? We're all involved in searching for the truth. But when I insist that my truth is the truth and nobody else has truth, that can be a little bit of a problem.
Do you think that's why, 90%, this is still the most segregated hour in America? Does this mean that we have not made progress racially? Or does this mean that we still, I want to hear me. Like when you were growing up, you said, okay, I grew up and I love the Catholic Church, but I grew up in this
we had problems with the Catholic Church. We had problems with the Catholic Church.
But we all have problems with our church,
knows
We
that it
definitely
has
have
its own
problems in the Baptist Church.
Well, there are problems everywhere. That's just the way human life is. But one of the things that was so exciting for us, as black Catholics, what was so exciting for us in the 60s, when Life magazine was talking about black culture, and you saw it all over the place.
I have to give a shout out to Father Clemens from
George
Chicago.
Clemens in Chicago.
That's right. And even Father Michael Flager, who is white and has one of the blackest churches.
Father Flavor with black flavor.
Oh.
Flavor with the flavor.
You're a Baptist, you can't help it, can you?
We worked on the Black Catholic hymnal, for example. What were we singing before the Second Vatican Council, before the 60s? Everything was in Latin, Gregorian chant. Well, you either fit into that or you kind of went along with it, what African American Catholics did. But once we had the African American hymnal, and now we have the new African American hymnal, we're not going back.
No.
We're not going back.
Now, how do you feel about that?
Well, I'll say this. I think we've become so religious that we've negated being spiritual. And what I mean by that is spirituality through the matrix of relationship with God, which also calls us to have a greater and stronger relationship with each other and brothers and sisters who don't even look like us. We have to, I believe, get to the place where we say, you know what, no one sect, no one specific organization, no one specific race of people has it all together in relationship to understanding who God is. I need your perception, I need your perspective to help me to ascertain and to grow in my relationship with God as well. And I believe when we get to the place of being spiritual, that's when we begin to unite with each other even more in our communities. We begin to, come together not just for a picture or not just for a photo opportunity, but we come together actually to create opportunities for people in our communities.
But I think, I think in terms of balance, because you asked about religion, and I do think in terms of the religious practice, because I have Catholics. My mom's side is a Catholic. I'm actually a quarter Italian. My mom's mom was Italian, and Baptist. On my father's side, what I see in just looking sociologically and macro-wise, what I see Islam, for example, bringing in terms of balance of spirituality and religion, because I'm seeing
it's
this.
all right. His phone is going. It's
Okay.
all good.
Oh, it's
We're
okay.
good. Keep
So
on going.
I'm seeing this
It's the
trend.
chimes. It's chimes.
That's
on.
that Catholic,
I see this I'm seeing this increasing dichotomy of religion way over here and spirituality way over here. And I think what Father's saying in terms of a balance of faith helps to mitigate and the manifestation of your spirituality. Religion, you can't exist, you can't completely manifest your spirituality without practicing some type of religion. Right. You have to do something in terms of a charitable work or something. It has to manifest somehow. Now, in terms of, am I talking about politics of institutions and churches and different things like that, and who wants to be at top and speak in front of the camera or what have you, that's something else. But in terms of the balance of what does my body do, what does the temple do, in terms of in reaction to what has God put inside of my heart, that has to play a balance.
Well, can we do that when blacks go to church over here, whites go to church over here, and Asian folk go to church? I mean, is the goal for us to desegregate church, or is the goal for us to have an African American expression in the Catholic experience? you know, I mean, and I don't just mean black broadly, I mean the African American that is coming out of slavery in America and all that stuff that we have gone through here. I do think it's important to have the African American experience represented in Islam. I mean,
Yeah, but Santita, the thing
or
is,
am I off
they're
am I off
coming,
base here?
we're already segregated before 11 o'clock.
Yeah.
That's not in a vacuum. That's not in a vacuum. People
So
people
is this
live
healthy
segregated.
for the church? Or is this...
I would say that I think it's healthy for the church. Look, the church should be looked at as a buffet. You know, you got different messages, you've got different entertainment or cultures, you got different backgrounds. Everybody should be able to take the opportunity to celebrate and worship with a community that makes them feel as comfortable as possible. And if that's the quartet singing on Sunday morning with the deacons in devotion, or if that's the 100-piece choir singing high church hymns, I mean, regardless of that, you need to be able to experience that the way you can experience that.
Because that's where you live.
Because
and
that's where you live. And not to mention the fact that there are different messages. You know, there are some pastors that have congregations in the suburbs that would be white churches or more diverse churches that have a different message for those people out there than the folks who are in the hood, say 7 Mile and or Dexter and Linwood. So we have to celebrate those differences, be able to be versatile and enjoy each other's differences, but I don't think we should have to look at it like, oh, well, you know, they're different and we need to try to emerge everybody in one place,
and
in one space.
What happens too is that in the African American, in the Catholic African American community, there are many people who come there who are not African American. There are Caucasians who come, there are Filipinos who come, you know, university students who come, white Catholic sisters who come. So there is that variety even there, you know. And I think it's a matter of having respect. And if we have that respect, you know, we may go to different churches, we may be of different races, but if we have that respect for one another, see, that's what's most important.
So you're
And
not
it's
alarmed by
we live.
this.
It's actually
I'm not
starting to
particularly
change. There was a day, even in my day, I'm 33 years old, where there was an African American church was an African American church. I mean, you would go in that church, it would be all African Americans. My church today, I have congregants who are white, who come to church and they want to feel
They want to be there.
and hear, and they want to preach, they want me to hoop and everything else, just as if I was in the traditional church. So I think that we shouldn't dismiss our flavors. We should enhance them, and we should appreciate them and appreciate our differences and highlight them.
And that's part of the transition of the interracialization of society. So again, churches and our religious institutions are functions of the context that we're coming in. And we can't put 8 to 11 on Sunday in a vacuum by itself. We're coming from segregated backgrounds and everything. So people are already looking for a certain flavor. They're already looking for.
And I want I want it the way that I want it, and you can respect that.
That's right.
That's fine.
And Italians want, I mean, and not all Italians do, but I mean, they bring their experience to the table, and this is the way they want to worship. And you know, I mean, because when you go into all of these churches, you know, people who are wealthy, people who are middle class, people who are poor, in every situation, worship and approach God, shall I say, differently. So this isn't something that should be frightening to us or alarming or alarmist, because, you know, some people, as I read, you know, about this study, people were saying, oh, Dr. King would be crying and on and on and on. And I said, well, not necessarily. 'Cause I don't think that was the point. Right? I mean, so...
I think the point of that statement, too, was just to say what a segregated society we're still in and that we should not be in. You know, I'm not sure if that statement just meant that, you know, forever and ever.
Well, I mean, I don't even know if these people really understood Dr. King's point, because I think that what you're saying is, wait, when we have been in diverse churches, you really had white pastors, which means you have 1 or 2 black folks in there, or they might be a whole lot, but you're not... But the baseline, I mean, that's what the whole cancel Colbert fight was about. The young woman who was driving it said, you know, wait a minute, I'm trying to help you to see that the baseline in America does not include me. She's an Asian American woman. She said, that's not right. So we're not talking about racism toward me. And I'm hearing you say this as you because I knew Mrs. Orly Sanders in Chicago, who was a great Catholic, black Catholic activist, and they were pushing to have churches. She said, I don't want to leave Catholicism. God rest her soul. She said, but I need, when I come to my parish, you need to talk to me.
Yeah.
You know, wait a minute. And you need to, I need to have a choir that's sounding like me.
That's right.
I mean, this is the way I serve up music. Now I need you to.
It's about embodiment. It's about embodiment, and what is a benefit to these things is people. Part of manifesting your spirituality is feeling validated and reinforced. And when you can get at least into a space, whether it's a segregated space or not, and at least a majority of people in their segregated spaces feel that this is the way I want to connect to God. This is the way that I want to worship. So long as the balance comes in and you're not looking at your brother or your sister as something less or lower, because then we're missing the point of spirituality with interconnectedness. So it's just about that balance.
And there are different messages for different cultures too.
That's
I mean,
correct.
the music, we focus on the music and the environment, but different messages for different cultures is very important. Some messages that you may preach into one church may be personal responsibility. Another message may be, baby, hold on, everything gonna be all right. One message may be, you need to take what you have and help someone else with it.
And, and those messages, if you will, Pastor, they need to change from time to time, from place to place.
Yes.
You know, because really, at the end of the day, this really is about God reaching you.
That's right.
God reaching you. But remember this, the baseline is God. It's not just you. It's who God is to you, who God is in you, and who God can be through you. He can only do, God can only do for us what we allow him to do through us. So remember, red, yellow, black, brown, and white. I think I heard someone say that before. We are all precious in God's sight, and we all matter. So wherever you worship, just worship God and rise to God. Don't bring God down to you. I love you. Until next week, God bless you.
Thanks for watching this edition of the Santita Jackson Show.